Lofi Poli Sci coming at you. Michael Pickering here with another behind the scenes. Lofi Poli Sci season 6 is quickly coming to a close. So we're going to take a quick look back at some pretty amazing guests we've had on the show this season and give you a bit of behind the scenes on what it's like for us to have someone on a show that's normally just one person and to incorporate other voices. So let's go. Season 6. This season, just in case you're wondering and you don't know, now you know. We had more guests on this season than any other season, which was the objective from the very beginning. And we did it. We had Lela Bella Walto on. We had Shay Meredith on. Gregory Day's always coming on. Dr. Robert Worth, political scientist extraordinaire. And we had 6 guests from UNO's Model United Nations come on to the live show. So a total of 8 guests this season. That's a lot for us. Though I'd like us to have more next season. But that's a different discussion. But let's start backwards first, right? Having guests on for the live show is a lot of work. So much goes into preparing for the live show's guest. Because it's not just, who to get on, but it's about what are they going to talk about? How long do they have to talk? And in what order are they to come into the show? And then to juggle talking to them whilst also mentally preparing for the next guest that comes on or the next segment that I'm going to do in between. But so really, there's a whole lot of behind the scenes work that goes into prepping having people on a live show. But really, live show guests, while it may have been the most difficult, I think it was totally worth it. And in many ways, it was the most fun. Just because it was so fast-paced, and we were able to interact with all of you, too. Now, what about what goes into a show with Gregory Day? Well, we got a little rhythm going on, The episodes that we do, we have an outline with structure, really, and it's all about inserting whatever top 10 theme and movies that Gregory Day comes up with into that outline. And then our discussion builds off of that organically. While these shows are longer than any of our other episodes with guests on, But I feel like Gregory Day and myself, because we've been doing this together for so long, John, it's over a year and a half now, I think. But because we're used to each other, this long show, the longest shows that we do, is actually the least amount of work for me as far as compared to having other guests on, because we're in the rhythm. We know what we got going on. And as soon as he sends me a list, then boom, it's like automatic. It's reflexes, muscle memory, really. Now, having other guests on the show, like for instance, when Lela Bella Walto came on the show, focusing on the treatment of widows in different countries around the world. I loved that show. That was such a great show and such a variation of what we normally talk about. And a lot went into that show on our parts as far as research and reading and taking time to digest the material. And especially for me, because this was not a topic that I knew a lot about. This was one of the most illuminating guest episodes like ever that I've done. Thank you, Lela Bella Walto, for that. And then most recently, the newest guest, and also the first guest that ever came on the show, that thankfully agreed to come back, Shay Meredith. Her episode on gender discrimination in the legal profession in the U.S. was so awesome. It was something I knew existed, but again, knew little about as far as the details that Shay provided for us and the different statistics. And that show was also scary as hell because you get mad seeing those kind of statistics and knowing how horrible they are in our own country. And I believe, if I remember right, I even dropped the F-bomb in that episode. I was like, oh, what the... I'm not going to say it this time. I'll only say it whenever there's really good cause to say it. But for all the guest and guest episodes, there's a lot of behind the scenes and logistics that goes on in order to make everything happen, from the initial getting the podcast together and talking to the person to getting it to you so you can listen to it. So, first, we got to find someone willing to actually come on a lo-fi global show. It may be more difficult than you think. But thank you for all those who have come. Then it's about the guest picking, a topic that they feel comfortable with, something that they have to say to everyone that they want people to hear. Then it's about scheduling, finding a recording date that works for us, as well as an airing date, to shoot for as far as when to publish the episode. Then it's research, outlining, rough script work, lots of backs and forth emails, trying to hammer out what the show's exactly going to look like, while also leaving enough vagueness in our script to have an organic and original conversation. Like we don't want to plan our conversation before the actual episode. We want it to take place in front of you. That way you're a part of it, and we honestly don't know how it's going to end. Then it's recording day, and there's always audio problems. Every single time there's audio issues. And we always have to stop at some point in the recording for one reason or another and start again. So it's also about creating segues whenever issues happen in recording for editing purposes. So that way it's not noticeable to you, the listener, that we actually had to stop somewhere. So we can have we're talking, and then cut and then splice it together with a new recording. Try to make it seamless. Then it's editing the audio. And while I do that, we're also making potential episode artwork, stuff for the YouTube. That way people have something to look at. And it's also choosing the music for the intro. And then once the first edit audio is done, I send it to the guest. And all that takes time, like a good bit of time. Plus, it takes time for the guest to actually sit down and listen to the episode to see if they want anything edited further, because all of these people have lives, they have jobs, they have better things to do than to sit down and listen to an hour podcast that they just recorded just to check for edits. But all guests on Lofi Poli Sci possess the power of final edit. They choose what the episode is, not me. They get final decision on everything, from the music to the episode art to the final cut. The guest always chooses. Then once they approve it, or I have to go back and edit again, and then they approve it again, then I format the YouTube video version with the episode artwork. I create the episode description with the guest's take on it, and we're done. And you get to hear Lofi Poli Sci with a guest on the show. And all of that happens every guest episode. That's the behind the scenes of it all. But it's not work. It's fun. It's passion. It's love. We love the things that we talk about. We love this whole process of working together. It's why we do the show. And it's why in season 7, we're going to see just what we can do to take it even further. But that's a story for a different day. And that's behind the scenes of Lofi Poli Sci. Connect with us on Instagram and LinkedIn, people. And it's not a cliche or a catchphrase. It's a lifestyle. Always remember that Lofi Poli Sci is more than just me. It's the we that we be. Talk to you tomorrow, Lofi listeners. Pickering, signing off.